Hello YouTube and welcome back trainers, this is Irvin. I hope you had a fantastic week with this game so far. It has been a blast for me and for a lot of other people. I see this game reaching a lot of bigger streamers as well. I'm so happy that everyone gets to enjoy this game. We all have been waiting for the English global release for quite some time. So now that it's finally here, I know a lot of new players jump into the game, first not knowing exactly what to do. I again have received a lot of messages on specifically the training part and how to train your UMA to B+ or maybe even A ratings. And yes, this is part 2 of the Umamusume URA Finals Career Masterclass, how to raise the perfect UMA. In the previous episode, we talked about support cards 101, how to choose support cards, how to find out whether a support card is great or not so great, what are the facts that you want to look out for, the skills, what are the things that really matters on a support card, so you can choose and upgrade only those cards that are very valuable to you and your runs, so you save a lot of resources. We've also established a little bit of a theory in terms of what to do first in the training sessions, and you have learned how to evaluate support cards even without a look on tier lists. But today we're going to take it a little bit further, and we're talking about the training objectives and how-tos. I will also give you a little bit of an example later on. We will also take a look at what makes the URA finals special. So what are the key moments in that scenario that you can always calculate with. There are fixed events. And finally, I will show you an example career run on how we put all the knowledge from the support cards 101 and the theory of the training together to make a really good UMA. Now, this section covers the theory of what we will be doing in the example run. I assume that you already know how to evaluate support cards and what they do. If not, you can watch the previous lesson in episode 1, support cards 101, where I go deep dive into the support cards. That really sets the basis for everything we're going to do from now. And as I mentioned earlier, the goal here is to help new players develop good decision-making abilities and intuition when training UMAs during the career. And we will achieve this by giving you basic guidelines that you can follow and develop your own training style from there on. Even if you don't know what to do, I will walk you through it and you will be training UMAs left and right without even thinking about it. You will be using a set of rules on top of your intuition that you will develop over time and get better with it. And from that point on, the game really will just be easy peasy lemon squeezy for you. All right, let's talk about the objectives when doing a career run. First and foremost, and the most obvious one, is you want to train an UMA to get a high-rated UMA that you will be able to use for your team roster or your team trials team. And as for the second reason, where most, I guess, a little bit more advanced players are onto right now, they really want to produce good parent UMAs or inspiration UMAs for the future generations. And they're specifically looking for good sparks that they can pass on to their next UMA that they want to train. Talking about a blue 3-star spark, stamina or power, and maybe get a scenario spark. So the URA Finale Scenario Spark, White Spark, and maybe Red Aptitude Sparks. Whatever it is, you can build your UMA in a way that will massively enhance the training of the next generation, or making certain playstyles for UMA possible that were not possible before. Now in my beginner guide, I also talked about the stat requirements a little bit. So you will need at least 600 in any stat. That will give you an approximate chance of about 5% to get a blue star spark at the end of every career run when your UMA is evaluated, and about 10% chance to get it if your UMA has a stat at 1100, just as a reminder. Now, it may sound obvious, but why do we want our UMA to have very good 3-star blue sparks? Well, to give you an easy to understand example is that in the previous video I also talked about this, where you really cannot afford to spread your resources too thin and ideally want to focus on only 1-2 stats maximum. That's how you can put all your focus and all your energy onto raising those facility levels. And the inspiration events, they happen 3 times during the career. One in the very beginning when you start the career, one in early April, the second year, and early April again in the third year. And you can use those events effectively by choosing Umas that have very strong 3-star blue sparks, preferably on, for example, stamina. That makes it so you don't necessarily have to raise the stamina by training in the stamina facility too much, because these inspiration events will give you hundreds of stat points on top of it without you even pressing the stamina button once, if you really need to. And the way it works is that for every 1-star blue spark, you get an initial of +5 stat points, and during inspiration events you can re-roll that stat and add it on top of your total stat line, giving you between 1 to 10 extra stat points. And a 2-star blue spark would give you initially +12 in the stat point, and when re-rolling during the inspiration events, it can net you another between 1 and 16 stat points. And for the 3-star blue sparks, initially they give you +21 for every 3-star blue spark that you have. They net you between 1 to 28 stat points on top for every roll during the inspiration. In addition to that, you have a higher chance of proccing the upper end of these possible ranges by having higher star rating on your blue sparks. Now, the increased chances for these spark proccing is in theory about 5% for a 1-star, 10% for a 2-star blue spark, and 15% for a 3-star blue. And these chances are also halved if the spark belongs to a grandparent, and better compatibility also increases the amount of blue stars inherited. And a little side note, if we don't happen to roll on a blue spark and rolling on the red sparks, that increases your aptitude for track length or even running styles. Note that the S aptitude can only be inherited from mid-inspiration events, so from early April 2nd year and on the 3rd year, not on the 1st year when you start the career. So your Uma can technically really have a C in short length, for example, and through the first inheritance you may get a B, and during the second inspiration you might roll enough stars on the short red aptitude spark, grow that B to an A, and it can even happen on the last 3rd year you might even roll more of these red sparks to increase the aptitude from the A to an S, and suddenly you have an Uma that started out with a C rating, getting them all the way to even an S. That's how powerful the inspiration can be. Now, this is one of many applications. There are also the white sparks for getting skill hints. There are race sparks for getting more stat points from specific races that you share with your parent Umas. And the URA Finale Scenario Spark that also gives more stat points on stamina and speed when rolling on it. And really, there's just a bunch of stuff that you can do with it, but I don't want to overwhelm you with that. If you want to read more on that, because we are not going to deep dive into that topic in this video, I can talk about this for hours and hours. Check out the resource from Crazy Fellow. He has this doc where he researched a bunch of stuff, and for the very tryhards, it's a good read. If you are really into that and want to understand it a bit deeper, I will link it also in the description. And really, I probably think this deserves a whole nother video on it. But for now, all you need to know in order to get better Umas and finish the career, if you have never finished it before, you will get there. I will tell you with this video. A good rule of thumb is to just not pair your target Uma with inspiration parents that may lead to generation of conflicting strategies. For example, Sibylle Rudolph unique skill is very strong because it allows late surgers or end closers to get a ton of velocity, a ton of speed by passing 3 Umas. But as you can see, it is kind of useless for the running strategies that always want to stay in the front, and they cannot fulfill the activation of this unique ability. Passing that skill down to a, let's say, San and Suzuka is mediocre at best. A big advantage of pairing Umas with similar running styles and distances together is that you will generally produce more common sparks in the lineage, because they usually tend to race the same races. And by winning those races with your Uma, you will benefit from getting more stat points from these race sparks. Same can be said for skills sparks, the white skill sparks. Rolling on sprint white sparks really doesn't benefit your Uma that primarily runs as end closer. So back to the objective, TLDR, produce good parents for your team roster or PvP, as well as and primarily focus on producing good inspiration or parent Umas for your future generations. Now with the URA scenario specifically, the third objective is to get the URA Finale Scenario Spark, which can only be obtained in this specific scenario. Eventually, when the other game modes, so the other scenarios like Aoharu, High, and Make a New Track and other future scenarios come in that are so much more better, there's no reason why you would want to revisit the URA Finale scenario, except for getting the URA Finale Scenario Spark if you want. Everything else can be done in much higher efficiency in the future scenarios. Now on to our next section, the how-to, and how do we really get to a stat line like this that Sumbili Rudolph has. This is a really good medium distance Uma. Really the goal here is to get the speed above 600, which is most of the case true, otherwise you are not going to be able to win the URA Finale, and getting a above 600 stamina stat and preferably above 600 power stat, so you can start getting the chances to roll on a 3-star stamina or power blue spark. Now here you see that my Sumbili Rudolph unfortunately did not got lucky and only a 1-star stamina spark, but it does comes with a good line of parents, as in having this Majiri McQueen inheriting a 3-star stamina spark with the URA Finale white spark, some really good white skill sparks like corner recovery, home stretch haste, has decent unique skills that can be passed down onto future late surgers that run in the medium distances or not even long distances, and has some interesting race sparks like Satsuki Sho or Takarazuka Kinen and even the Kika Sho. Now with that stat line, I think most people think that I have a good amount of speed cards on that run, as well as maybe having some stamina and some power cards because all of them above 600. Well, the reality is that you don't need to do that. These are the support cards that I use for the run. We got our free MLB Special Week speed card, our MLB Sweep Tosho, which is fantastic, and then a couple of other speed cards that I had in my disposal. I rented out an MLB Super Creek, which everyone can do, and with only one stamina card, no power card, we were still able to reach the threshold of 600 and produce an Uma that is above 10k in rating, an A rank Uma. I see a lot of people mixing with a lot of different cards, but like I said in the previous video in my support card mastery, we really just want to focus on cards of a specific type to be able to increase our chances to not only bond with the supports more often, but triggering the friendship training more often and hitting the button repeatedly will be able to help us also increasing the facility level much quicker. And that really creates a snowball effect that allows you to even hit thousands of speed by second summer training. You can argue that a better stat line here would also be using 4 speed cards and 2 stamina for that purpose. There's a reason why we chose these cards for Sumbili Rudolph specifically, since she has a 20% growth stat in stamina, which essentially for me means that you can get away with running 1 less of a stat requirement card, so 1 less stamina in order to hit the stamina requirements. If I would have a 20% growth stat in speed, for example, I would probably run 1 less speed card because I would be able to hit the threshold with 1 less card because of the growth factor. That is something you want to consider, which I will also mention later on in the example run. And by running the same type of a card, I just increase the chances of stacking those friendship training together. And with all these friendship bonuses, as well as training effects, and to a degree mood bonus as well, not only are we boosting our speeds by plus 40, plus 50, plus 60 every time we hit a good speed friendship training, but also boost our power by 20, 30 with 1 click, which is the equivalent of having a strong rainbow training on power with a power card, which we don't even have to include in here. As we get better cards, more MLBs, better support cards, we will be able to run more diverse sets and allow to have a little bit more RNG in our support cards choices, running 3 to sometimes even 2 speed cards, and the rest are other type cards. So the best you can do is just to keep it simple and really just focus on 2 type cards. It's either speed, stamina, speed, power, or speed, wisdom. And since you can boost your power with the speed cards, you can focus less on the extra power card, more on the stamina cards like Super Creek, where you have to run the medium long distances, or just use the wisdom card like Fine Motion if you run the sprint or miles. In my beginner's guide, I also mentioned the best lineup of support cards that you can have is having 4 usable speed cards, 2 usable stamina cards, and 2 usable wisdom cards. And that minimizes the amount of resources that you have to spend leveling on cards, as well as maximizing the utility of the cards that you have. And yes, you will optimize down the line. Eventually, you will roll and probably get more SR cards and even MLB some of them, which then will replace some of the other cards, which then make runs like these or even A+ UMAs much more easier. It's also something important to note that you do not want to overcap on the speed cards too much. So for example, running this set on a Silent Suzuka with a plus 20% growth stat will overcap on speed too quickly, and you will have most of the time only friendship trainings on the speed cards at the end of the run where you really just want to hit other buttons. Now, generally speaking, a sprint or a mile UMA wants to cap out on the speed stat, whereas the medium or the low focused UMA, they only need about 800, 900, maybe 1000 speed to win the URA finale, which is totally fine. As for the team trials, this is a total different story. We have higher stat requirements there and stamina requirements there, so that will look different. The rating will also be determined by the amount of skills that you proc during the races, so a high wisdom stat is required. For specific styles like the runner style, I do prefer having more wisdom and power and speed than stamina and guts, because a very high wisdom stat will allow you to trigger more skills to help your front runner stay in front and secure position, and that is going to be very much needed. Whereas on the medium or long focus one, you might want to go for a higher stamina and higher power stat, because overtaking other UMAs with a higher acceleration is going to be very important. Things like these you have to consider. Generally speaking, the power stat we really want on every UMA. Now it varies based on the strategy, but generally a power stat of 600 or higher for the URA is possible and recommended. And I would choose parent UMAs with very good 7 to 9 star in the power blue spark, because we really want to use the inspirations events effectively, and by doing that every inspiration will net us around between 100 and 150 in extra stats per inspiration without us ever having to click on the power button once. And by clicking a lot of friendship training and speed, we will also naturally increase our power stat meanwhile. Therefore, you will be easily getting to the 600 power threshold without even using a power card or focusing on the power training at all. Now, this can also be said with other stats, vice versa. So let's say you have 4 speed and 2 power cards, and you can inherit these very high stamina stats from inspirations by choosing parent UMAs with very high blue stamina sparks. However, the former lineup is more recommended, since having a Super Creek on your support card set does give you the gold recovery skill, the Swinging Maestro, which is generally the best skill that there is. Now, something I want to say here is that you could technically reach a 1200 speed UMA with just 2 speed cuts that has a plus 20% growth rate on the speed stat and has very strong speed sparks from the parents, but that involves much more RNG, but it is possible. Alright, now before we go into the nitty gritty, I just want to talk about the race bonus just a little bit. I said in the previous videos that we want to focus more on the friendship training and doing less races if possible, and therefore race bonus is not going to be as effective as in other future scenarios like make a new track. Though it is advisable for the URA scenario to accumulate at least 35% in race bonuses, because you will have a couple of races during the career, and at the end of the career when winning the URA Finale qualifiers, semifinals, and the finals, where all of these races give you all stat bonuses. This 35% will push the threshold of getting the standard +3 stats across the board to a +4 across the board, and increases the SP gain overall, which will help you getting more skills in total. Especially the last races will give you +10 for all your stats 3 times, and all of these races can be amplified with a race bonus of 35 or higher percentage. Alright, now we will talk about what exactly to do using a flowchart that you will get to see after the next section. But first, I want to go over the specifics for the URA Finale scenario. If you might have noticed or not, there is a set of support casts that accompany you throughout the whole career, who are Aoi Kiryuin and Happy Meek. Now, with Happy Meek, there is a special event coming later on in a future update where she is going to have a little bit more relevance in this specific scenario, which we will not go over here yet. And there is Aoi Kiryuin, who also gives you a couple of things here and there throughout the career run, but really does nothing more as well. It is noticed that the support card Aoi Kiryuin has its effects boosted. She is a PEL card, that means more energy recovery and stronger energy cost reduction and stronger failure protection. Then there's also our receptionist, Tatsuna Hayakawa, who sometimes gives us useful hints throughout the career run, but I think most of the time people just ignore her. We know her by now, the woman with the green head. Then we have the director herself, Yayoi Akikawa, who established the URA Finale in the first place, and she will play a role during the career, as well as the reporter Etsuko Otonashi, who also plays a semi-important role in the career. Now, I have prepared this sheet in advance so I can let you know about all the fixed events that will happen during the URA Finale scenario. All these events will happen for all of your Umas 100% of the time, as long as you fulfill the requirements if they are there. I'm not taking into consideration certain other events that some Uma might have specifically, and you will also be able to find this calendar in the description down below. Now, every URA scenario career run begins with the first inspiration. That means at the start of the career, you will inherit from every parent and grandparent certain sparks at a certain quality, and that will increase your stats. For the first inspiration, you will see in the selection screen before when you choose your parents what kind of stats and attitude are getting upgraded, so that should not come to a surprise. After, we have the road to stardom, which just means that Akikawa is appearing during the training from that point on, and getting Akikawa to an orange friendship gauge or to max at the end of the URA Finale career run, once you win the finals, will give you a massive stat boost at the end of the run. During the junior year, obviously, you also have your debut race, which you have to win in order to get promoted to your beginner class. Only then can you run other races. Otherwise, you will be prompted to do maiden races until you are getting promoted to the beginner class, which only after that point of time, the G3 to 1 races are getting available to you. Then at the end of the early July turn, we got the Quirky Correspondent event where the reporter Etsuko Otonashi will also appear during the training. Similar to Director Akikawa, you will be able to raise Horror Bond when training with her. Not as important as Director Akikawa, but something to note is that she will also increase all your stats by a good amount by the end of this run, if you have gotten her to an orange or max friendship level. Now, for the second year, we will start the year with the New Year's resolutions. At the beginning of the turn, you will be given 3 options. The top option is usually always a stat +10, that is very specific for every Uma, and then the middle option is always going to be energy +20, and the bottom option is going to be skill points +20. I always recommend to go for the energy +20 if you have 80 or less energy, and going for the bottom option is viable if you already have a lot of energy or you don't think you need that extra energy, because that extra +20 energy basically means you have an extra turn of training, which usually gives you more than 10 stats on average. Therefore, the top option really is not worth it, in my opinion. Then we have the holding an event, which is an event that helps you get your mood up, which always happens at the early March end of turn. We then get to early April, very important event. This is your second inspiration. You can potentially get massive amount of stat points and maybe good skill inheritance, or be able to increase your aptitudes from A to S. Then we have our favorite, the summer training, which begins early July. So make sure that by end of June, you have a good mood, as well as preferably maximum or a lot of energy, so you can go through all the 4 summer turns without resting once. Sometimes it does happen that you have to rest at least once. During summer training, the rest and recreation buttons are merged together, so clicking that not only restores energy but also gives you a mood up. And you also might have noticed that all these training buttons are all purple. That means that all the training facilities during summer training are at level 5. So by then, make sure that most of your, and preferably all of your characters are at orange gauge or higher, so you can trigger friendship training during that period of time. We then end the summer camp at late August. Here you get +5 into 3 random stats. By early November, end of turn, you will trigger the 3-legged race event if you have 50,000 fans by then, and Aoi Kiryu will then give you a hint for a level 1 Iron Will as 20 skill points plus 20 wit. And then at the end of the second year, the event at the carrot farm will trigger when you have 100,000 fans, and that will give you plus 30 skill points extra for free. Now on to the third and last year, the senior year. We also begin with New Year's event. In this case, the New Year's Shrine visit early January at the beginning of the turn, which again gives you 3 options. The top option being plus 30 energy, the middle option all stats plus 5, and the bottom option skill points plus 35. For me, similar to the options from the last New Year event, the energy option is very desirable if you have 70 or less energy, and the bottom option is always nice to have if you have above 70% in energy. The all stats plus 5 sounds very tempting, but that really generates a total stat bonus of 25 across the board. And usually by that time, with 30 energy, you will be able to do a training that should do more than 25 skill points, for example, with the friendship training. Then we have one of my more favorite events, the raffle time, which happens also early January, end of turn on the same day, which will randomly give you all stats up and the mood up or mood down. Now, there are different events happening, from you getting the tissue, which will bring your mood down, but nothing else. Or you can get carrot, a bundle of carrot, or you can get a carrot in the hamburger. All of these events will boost all your stats up, as well as give you a mood up. Then we also have one of the more important events, the Valentine's Day, early February, which happens when you have at least 60,000 fans for Umas that preferably run turf, and only 40,000 fans requirement if your Uma primarily runs dirt, like Haru Urara or Smart Falcon, which we don't have yet. That will trigger a unique skill level up. That means your ultimate or your unique skill will get a boost during the career run for free. And then we already hit the third and last inspiration event in early April, the third year, which again can give you another big stat boost if you have really good spark parents, or boost your attitudes even more. We then have the Fan Fest, also a very important event, since this one is one of the 3 unique skill level up events, and it gives you a mood up if you reach 70,000 fans for every turf focused Uma, and 60,000 fans as the requirement for every dirt focused Uma. You also need to have at least a green friendship with Director Akikawa, which is 3 bars. And then, as always, in early July, you will start the summer camp again, which also lasts until late August. That also gives you +5 in random stats by the end of every summer training. Again, like in the second year, make sure that before entering summer training, your energy is at a very high, preferably max level, and your mood is at least good, preferably great. Because by that time, usually you have all your friendship gauges maxed, and you really want to capitalize on all the training facilities being at level 5. Then we have the holiday season event, which happens by late December, when you have 120,000 fans for every turf focused Uma, and only 80,000 fans in requirement for every dirt focused Uma. And that will give you the last unique skill level up event. And on the same day, at the end of turn, you will trigger the going to the URA Finale event as long as you have fulfilled all your career requirements by then. Now they will show you that event screen no matter what, but in order to get the plus 30 skill points that you can get for free from this event, you need to have 240,000 fans by then. And then we have the real spies here, which are the URA Finale races. So we have 3 races in total that you have to win and get first place, otherwise the career run ends here. So for winning the URA Finale qualifier, you get an all stats plus 10 and plus 40 base skill points. Now, this is likely always going to be higher for you, because this is affected by the race bonus of your support card sets. Now, by winning the URA Finale semifinal, you will get an all stats plus 10 and base skill points plus 60. And lastly, after winning the finale finals, first of all, congratulations for winning the finals. You will get an all stats plus 10 and skill points plus 80. Now, the numbers here will vary because no one really focuses on the race bonus that much at the beginning. Some have a little bit less, some have a little bit more. Expect to see on average here an all stat of plus 13, 14. Now, something that will also always trigger if you're not getting thrown out of the career before is the Twinkle monthly special issue, which will trigger right after winning the finale. The reporter Etsuko Otonashi will give you plus 10 in skill points. Unless you have orange or max friendship with her, then she will give you an extra all stats plus 5 and plus 20 skill points. Following after that, Director Akikawa will bring you the a successful event or a super successful event, when getting the director to at least orange or max friendship and winning the URA Finale. That will give you the director's fan. That will give you a plus 15 stats across the board and plus 50 skill points. If you have not maxed out the friendship with Director Akikawa and maybe got it only to the blue gauge, then I think you will trigger a successful event, not super successful event, and you will get plus 10 stat points across the board instead. But by then, you will notice whether you have gotten the director's fan or not, and whether you have done a good job by making friends with Director Akikawa. And then for the last event, that is an individual trainee event. The name of the event is always different for every other UMA, which happens after winning the URA Finale finals, which will trigger the good ending for your UMA, and that will reward you with an extra plus 5 stats across the board and plus 20 skill points on top. The base training values for the URA Finale scenario are the following. All of these stats, like mentioned in the previous video, are being enhanced by training effectiveness, mood bonuses, as well as specific stat training bonuses, and of course friendship training if you trigger those. In the URA Finale scenario, all facilities start at level 1 and they level up every 4 times you use them. The stat cap for the URA Finale scenario is 1200 across the board, and that can change in the future and they might raise it to 1400, but that we don't have yet. And lastly, the scenario spark that you will get from the URA Finale is the URA Finale White Spark, which will give you an increase in speed and stamina if you inherit the White Spark during the inspiration events. And that is it for the most important scenario specifics of the URA Final scenario. And now we are on to the last part of this video, which is probably going to be the more lengthiest part of the video, but a much important one because a lot of people wanted to see how I train the UMAs or how you can train your UMAs as well. As I said before, I do follow a very simple flowchart that I constructed. And I really thought about how I make choices when training my UMAs, and I put it all into this priority flowchart or guideline that you can use that I will going to show you and explain you now, that will help most players who's starting out making better choices overall during the career. So here it is. Now I will run through it all in theory, but fret not, we will have countless examples on how I use this specific flowchart. But for now, I would just go over what to do at each step. So First step, the status screen. So the number one priority is to make sure that you hit your career goals no matter what, since not doing it will end your run prematurely. Your UMA will be much more weaker than what it could have been, and the whole reason why you even watched this video is to make sure that your UMA wins the URA Finale, as well as you want to get the highest rating possible on your UMA, or at least hit the 600 stat threshold in order to get the chance to get a 3-star blue spark that you were farming for. Now, keep in mind that if you don't win your debut race, you are prompted to run maiden races or gain a little bit of fans in order to be promoted to the beginner class. That is important because otherwise you're not going to be able to race other races, so the G2, G1 races, and by default your career will end here if you are not able to win those kind of races. So if you check that and got that out of the way, the next step is to see whether there is summer training coming up next turn. That means if the next turn is going to be early July, and ideally you want to rest up or at least use wit if you already have enough energy before the start of summer training. Take note that you do sometimes have to rest on early June, because on late June there is the Takarazuka Kinen race that some UMAs have set as a mandatory race, so keep an eye out for that. Next in line is I would check every important G1 races and see if you want to run them. These optional races you do not have to race, and as I mentioned earlier in the previous video and in this video, we do not want to focus too much on the racing. However, it might be required for you to hit certain fan requirements in order to get the bonuses from the URA fixed events, like the unique skill level up or the extra skill points by the end of the year. And if you do want to run races, might as well take the triple crown or tiara with you. So on the right side I have listed the race requirements for getting those crowns. In the second year, you can either get the triple crown or the triple tiara, not both, because the races are all on the same day. So the Satsuki show is on the same day as the Oka show, and the Tokyo Yushin or the Japanese Derby in late May is on the same time as the Japanese Oaks, and the Kiku show on late October is also on the same date as the Shuko show by design. Also take note that some UMAs can only get the triple crown or the triple tiara in the second year because their career goals require you to run certain races like the Satsuki show or only the Oka show, you will know. And in the third year you are usually able to get both of them, so the spring triple crown and the autumn triple crown. For the spring triple crown you run the Osaka High in late March, the Tenno Show Spring in late April, and the Takarazuka Kinen in late June. For the Autumn Triple Crown, you run the Tenno Show Autumn in late October, the Japan Cup in late November, and Arima Kinen in late December, the last day of your career run, before entering the URA qualifiers. Now, if you don't plan to run any races, next in line is to check whether you have any status condition. So you go to the infirmary and get yourself checked out and cured, as these status effects sometimes are very detrimental to your career run if you don't cure them very early on. Sometimes it does take a couple more tries in order to cure a certain status condition, and sometimes you can get back a little bit of energy, which is always nice to see. If you're all healthy and all good, now you want to check if you have enough energy to do a training. Now everyone is a little bit more risk tolerant and less risk tolerant. I personally find that the sweet spot is around 30%. That is about when the speed failure shows you a percentage at 29%. The reason being, sometimes if you click on rest, the maximum energy that you can recover is 70. So then clicking the rest button ideally can fill you up to maximum energy when recovering 70 at 30% energy. And if you have enough energy, then you're allowed to go to the training screen. Now, as I've mentioned many times in this video and in previous videos before, the ultimate goal here is to first of all prioritize raising friendship gauge or bond level, because that will ultimately set you up for getting more friendship training, so rainbow buttons, as soon as possible, so you can start snowballing these increased stat gains from those trainings. I want you to understand what I define as friendship value or bond value, which is every support on your training facility that is blue or green engaged, but not the ones that already have an orange gauge, and not the director Akikawa as well as the reporter Otonashi, because those three will not further increase your chances of you hitting the friendship training. Very important to understand is that hints on specifically blue and green gauge supports are very valuable, since I do count them as +1 in friendship or bond value, because a hint will trigger a scene where you bond with that specific support by 5 on top of the regular 7 if you would bond with them regularly. Also to note is that if you have 2 or more hints on the same training facility, I will still only count that as +1 friendship or bond value, because you cannot trigger 2 hint scenes after one another. We can make this flowchart much more simple in design. It might look a little bit complicated to you on the first look, but trust me, it is very easy to understand. The primary goal here is to check whether we have a lot of friendship value on one training facility, and we prioritize that over anything else. Now, there is an order how I am going to check those training facilities one after another, because a very strong speed friendship training with a lot of friendship value is something I would prioritize first. Then if it's there or not there, I would also check the second priority stat and so on. The reason why I'm doing this and rank them within this step is sometimes you do have multiple buttons with a lot of potential friendship value on them, and this helps you prioritizing raising the facility levels as well. Now, if you're a more seasoned player, then you probably don't need to hear this. There may be certain supports that you might want to prioritize raising before, so you might want to give them a higher priority instead. But for now, I think most people can stick to these default values, and that's when I'm saying you will use your intuition, because sometimes you will face certain scenarios where, let's say, a friendship training on speed is less stronger than a friendship training on the second priority stat, even though both of them maybe only have a friendship training with 1 support, but the other one has a couple more supports on them that will also raise the stats using their training effectiveness as well as other stat gaining bonuses. First, we check the training facilities, whether we can find a good training with a friendship value of 3 or more. I would check speed first, then my second priority. It may be wisdom, it might be stamina, and then the third priority stat, which might be important if you play a deck with multiple type supports. And then I also want to check the other facilities that don't matter that much most of the time, guts, and see whether there is a very good training there, which does happen quite frequently. Next step, this is where my approach differs a little bit to some of the other ones, where they make it very simple, and this is not something you will find early in the game, but eventually you will get to a point where you orange gauge a couple of your supports, and it can happen that early on, before you have finished raising all the friendship levels to orange, that you will find a friendship training with 2 or more supports on a speed training or on a training for your second priority stat that has a higher value to me than raising friendship gauges of 2 if you have to choose between them. Now, the reason why I have intertwined checking friendship values with a strong friendship training instead of solely focusing strictly maxing the friendship values, all of them first, is the following. So this flowchart takes a dynamic approach for decision making, where the transition from the phase of increasing the friendship gauge, which has utmost priority at the beginning, to the phase of focusing on the friendship training is much smoother, and if the RNG is not too bad, also much more efficient than sniping single friendship values. Because once you slowly start hitting orange gauges, focusing too strictly on increasing friendship gauges at a lower value too much will make you miss powerful friendship training early on. That might have also helped you increase facility level. All of it will make more sense once we get into an example training run. But for now, let's take a look at the next steps in the flowchart. In the very likely case, if there are no other friendship training with 2 or more supports and no friendship gauges of 3 or more that we can raise, we would check for training facilities that help us increase the friendship value of 2 supports in the same priority order, where you can also mix the order a little bit up depending on situation and your intuition. Now, after that, I will go into recreation if my mood is at bad or below, because that has a higher priority for me, instead of clicking the friendship training with 1 support or even raising the friendship gauge of 1 support, because the bad mood can carry over for a longer period of time if you do not tend to it. Some people also might rank recovering from bad or lower mood higher than in this flowchart, that is perfectly viable. I just prioritize early bonding, which supports higher, as the stat gains initially, even when at bad mood, doesn't affect the performance too much. Now we have many random and fixed events that can help maintaining a great mood without focusing on recreation too much. And the order of priorities, when I would usually click on recreation, like shown here in the flowchart, you will develop over time your own playstyle and intuition later on and adjust those priorities accordingly. And you will click the recreation button when you see fit. Now, if the mood is at normal or better, we can check for if there are any friendship training with exactly one support, because we have already ruled out there are no more friendship training with 2 or more. So same order, we check for the speed first, then check on the second priority stat, and then check on the other stats if we have other type cards that can trigger the friendship training. And then finally, which happens also frequently, if you don't have any friendship training, you came to a point where you cannot max any supports because they are already at orange gauges, then we come to the end of the flowchart, and skip turn is the phase where we don't have any good play to make, so going into the next turn with minimal resource is usually preferred. So that means if we are able to click on the wit, which gives us energy preferably, and if we can also snipe a friendship value that we still have missed, then this is definitely something we want to go for. If not, then we will click the recreation if our mood is at normal. Sometimes I even click it if it's already at good. But keep in mind that there are certain fixed events and sometimes random events that increase the mood status, so you might want to check out the URA calendar events first to see when that exactly will happen, so you don't overlap on the mood gains. And then finally, if there's really nothing you can do, then you can click on any support where you can still increase the friendship gauge off. That does include then Director Akikawa as well as Etsuko Otonashi to make sure that you can get the bonuses from them by the end of the run. Or you can just click on an empty wit button or a wit button with orange gauge supports on them. Or you can do a race for the skill points. Now, a few key training tips here. If we failed training, we usually want to choose the top option, as that usually results in less strong setbacks. We don't want to gamble with the RNG with the bottom option, which can help you get away with no mood down or stat down, but at the risk of losing much more stats in comparison to the top option. Also, try to only race if the next mandatory race is not within a 3 or more consecutive race streak. So that means if you have done a race the day prior and the options are not looking too great for you, so you are thinking about racing again, but you have a mandatory race on the next day, that will put you into 3 or more consecutive race streak, which can affect your mood and can even bring you to an awful mood status after racing the mandatory race, which is not something you would want. So preferably you want to avoid that. And lastly, if you're already at about 1150 stat points, about 50 points before the cap, I would stop using the friendship training on those stats, since winning the URA Finale will usually max out the stat by the end of the career. As mentioned earlier in the fixed events, winning those events will give you a lot of stat points, so it is much better to raise a stat that is about to hit 600 for a chance to get a blue spark on that stat. And with that being said, we have finally arrived to the last part of this video, which is giving you an example around of what we have talked about before, and utilize everything we have learned from the previous and from this video so far, and really just combine all the knowledge together and give you a visual example on how that all works. Alright, it's me from the future after edit. So I had to record the following part, the example career run, 3 times already, and every time I was yapping for too long. Each and every one of those recordings went for another 2 hours, and that is even for me a little bit too much to handle and to edit. And I think it's also too much for you as well, since this video by that time I already see is above around 50 minutes already. That's quite a lot. I'm not going to bore you with more of my yapping. Instead, I'm just going to show you a replay on the career run. And I was following the exact same procedure as I discussed earlier. So I was following the flowchart as well as all the best practices that we've talked about from the previous episode. So support card mastery, as well as everything we talked about before here in this video. So I hope that you all can enjoy watching and learn from this silent, uncut playthrough. I will add comment labels here and there when I think it's needed to give you helpful insights. And with that being said, I will finish this video now. I will sign off and enjoy the career run. I will see you in the next time. I have a lot more to plan. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Please show me some love and share it with other people if you think it was helpful for you, or you think there's someone who might need to watch this. With that being said, I'm out here. See you. Bye bye.
ゴールドシップよっしゃタイキックで培った脚力気合いだどうすん行くぜよっしゃ今日は行くぜよっしゃ今日は行くぜ余裕余裕しようぜ 走るならかカメコ
注目の一番人気8番。
くるっと回ってワオ一着のポーズやるわよ合体魔法よっしゃあはい行くぜよっしゃひる行くぜひるよろしくお願いします気合いだどうすんだよっしゃ注目のハマーだろああ、それな。出発！どうすんだ？よっしゃ！根性で頑張りましょう。よろしくお願いします。 慣れ合うわけじゃないから。亀かウサギか。ピッ。
注目の一番人気。
早くしねえと勝手にどっか行っちまうぞ。タイキックで培った脚力でいる。余裕余裕。今日はどっやるわよ。合体魔法。2週間目のセミくらい元気でね。
注目の一番人気。
ハマーだろ。広め向いて走る。私の慣れ合うわけじゃないから。はい。よっしゃ。私の根性で頑張りましょう。なあ、一緒に頑張りましょうね。今日はどうやるわよ。合体魔法。大気慣れ合うわけじゃないから。
注目の一番人気。
タイキックで培った脚力で舞台を踏み鳴らしてやるぜ。早く。よろしくお願いします。もう無理。 広めやるわよ合体魔法宴かレースか実力は引けを取ります。どうやよろしくお願いします。早くよろしくお願いします。合体技の練習だ。早く
注目の一番人気
ハマーだろ。
2週間目のセミくらい元気出ねえぞ。
根性で頑張りましょう。宴が実力は引けを取ります。どうや
広め向いて走ると
気合いだ。
最低。
準備はバッチリだ。 注目の1番。ナイストレイどうや。早く一緒に頑張りましょう。ゴール。合体技の練習だ。よートロー。早く根性で頑張りましょう。大キックで培う。根性で頑張りましょう。慣れ合うわけじゃないから。走るならフィール。注目の1番にナイストレイどうや。広め向いて走ると大キックで注目の1番。かもなく不可もねえな。根性で頑張りましょう。走るならほん。注目の3。ナイストレイどうや。やるわよ。合体魔法。亀かウサギかっつったらウサギか。注目の1番。ナイストレイどうや。亀かウサギかっつったら勝ちは十分に。ナイストレイどうや。今日はどうすんだ。 あれはバ画面こ
2番ゴールドシップ5番人気。
ライバルたちは今日
出走じゃ晴れ渡る空の下行われる京都レース場芝 2400 URA ファイナルズ決勝。18人の馬娘たちが挑みます。現在1番人気はシンボリルドルフ、続く2番人気は成田ブライアン。注目の2冠馬娘ゴールドシップ1枠2番での出走。
気合十分いい顔してますね。
各馬娘ゲートに入って体勢整いました。スタート。各馬娘揃って綺麗なスタートを切りました。
これは位置取りが熾烈になりそうですね。
先行争いはセイウンスカイ、アイネスフージ、ミホノブルボン、最高峰からのレースとなったゴールドシップ。大丈夫か。
ちょっと苦しいが大丈夫。ここからが彼女の実力の見せ所です。
アイネスフージ快調に飛ばしていきます。成田ブライアン上がっていきます。長丁場のこのレースですがアイネスフージ早くも先頭に躍り出た。続きましたセイウンスカイ、早くも激しい競り合い。カートシーサー、ミホノブルボン1馬身離れて7番1コーナーからそして2コーナーへ向かっていきます。先頭から後方まで間延びした展開です。
後方の馬娘が差し返せるのか気になる開きです。
ここで先頭はセイウンスカイ、アイネスフージ並んでくる。3番手ミホノブルボン内7番、さらに4番1馬身差3番少し離れて17番、その後ろ5番少し後ろからダイワスターレット。それを見るようにハッピーリーク向こう正面に入って先頭はアイネスフージ。順位を振り返っていきます。現在1番手はアイネスフージ、続いてセイウンスカイ、3番手にはミホノブルボン4番4番手、そしてその後方には7番、その後面白くなってきたぜ。内で3番、あとは5番、さらにはダイワスターレット、ハッピーリーク、続いているシンボリルドルフ並びかけてきた。差がなく12番内を回って1番残り 1000m を通過。そして6番外には成田ブライアン、その後からゴールドシップ、後方2番手に9番最高峰13番アイネスフージン。先頭を進みますがこれは正解でしょうか。
アイネス風神、彼女の客室には合っていますね。
意気揚々と先頭を行きます。アイネスフージンどうでしょうこの展開。
ちょっとかかり気味かもしれないです。一息つけるといいですが
第4クォーターカード。
馬娘たちがどう動くか目が離せません。
さあいよいよ直線だ。どのタイミングで誰が仕掛けるのか。栄光まで400、最終コーナーを曲がって最初に駆け抜けてきたのはアイネスフージン。外から上がってきたのはゴールドシップ。まくって上がってくるゴールドシップ。残り200、ゴールドシップずんずんと上がっていく。ゴールドシップ抜き出したゴールドシップ追い込んでくる。先頭は変わらずゴールドシップ。ダイレクションだゴールドシップ。今勝利です。この子にかなう馬娘はいるのか。ゴールドシップ URA ファイナル。どうや。 私との日々癖になっただろ。